Welcome to Issued for Construction. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs, and today I've got with me a woman who, actually, you might have heard her father last week, but this week I have her. And who is her? Well, her name is Vanessa Eckstein, and she runs a practice called Blok Design. And if you're unfamiliar with Blok Design, it's been around for more than a couple of years. And they do graphic design and so much more. While they're situated here in Toronto, their work is global. Vanessa is an enigmatic person. She is full of ideas and opinions and creativity. I have not had a graphic designer on the podcast before, but just simply based on the amount of connectivity that she has to our industry, it makes sense that you sit across from me now. So thank you for taking time away from your practice and your clients to do this.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
There are businesses in this city that have been around long enough to have outfitted the kitchens of your parents and your grandparents before you. Kaplan's Appliances is one of them. Since 1944, Robert and his family, along with a team of Kaplans, have been doing something that is increasingly rare in retail. They have stayed independent, stayed local, and stayed deeply invested in the neighborhood they call home. Robert is not just the owner of Kaplan's. He is the chair of the Mount Dennis BIA, the business improvement area that anchors the stretch of Weston Road where Kaplan's has operated for more than 80 years. That kind of commitment to a neighborhood decade after decade is not something you manufacture. It is earned. The showroom at Eglinton and Weston carries the brands that architects, designers, and builders, homeowners actually want, that they specify. Sub-Zero, Wolf, Miele, Jenner, Fisher & Paykel, La Cornue, DCS Outdoor, KitchenAid, and more. And their Miele gallery with a live kitchen and full-time chef on the floor is unlike anything else in Toronto. And it was one of the first Miele galleries in all of North America outside of Miele. If you want to learn more, head over to the liner notes and you can visit their website there, or email me and I'll make an introduction to Janine, who looks after client relations. My email address is Jonathan, Jonathan, at issuedforconstruction.ca. Now, let's get back to Vanessa. So I think what's kind of cool about this, so last week I had your dad, Jorge, on, who you told me I should have on, and I'm so thankful that you did, because what an incredible episode that was. And I realize as we had a kind of like a prelude conversation to sitting down now, we talked about the importance of family values and how families can either bestow a work ethic in you or not. And having now met your father, I can now appreciate why you've been successful. So with that said, you weren't expecting any of this.
No.
So with that said, so tell me and tell the listeners, where were you born? What was life like growing up? Do you have siblings? Just tell us a little bit of an introduction to who you are as a person, where it all started.
So I was born in Argentina, raised in Buenos Aires. And yes, I do have two brothers. And it's honestly, I think I'm incredibly lucky to have a very tight but a very expansive family. Like, our dinner tables were, I always think about that in my childhood. It was just a very rich dinner table in the sense of sort of human richness and intellectual richness. And there was always discussions and debates, and you could have any conversation from politics, to the arts, to pretty much any conversation at that dinner table. And so it was a household that was always about expanding your mind. And very early on, my parents saw that I loved the arts. So my mom...
When did that start? How old were you?
Very young, all my life. Like, I was always drawing since, honestly, all my life. Like, the moment I think I got a pencil in my hand, like, it was the thing.
3-4 years old? 5 years old?
For sure, because they kept every drawing. So I know it's true. So my mom convinced a very well-known surrealist painter, and nobody understands how she convinced him to take me on as a student at age 11.
Okay.
And he had never had a student that young, and we don't understand how he said yes, but it was it shaped me in many ways to start, because he used to paint in a neighborhood called La Boca, which was 2 hours away from my house. So we would take a train and a bus to get there. It took us an hour and a half or close to 2 hours to get there. My mom would wait at a cafe. I would take 2-hour classes and we would come back.
You traveled for anywhere between 3 to 4 hours for a 2-hour class.
Yes.
That is commitment from your mother.
That is the point. And then maybe that's why I start talking about my mom and not my dad, because both of them have this, like, they always taught us that you should look at your kids and see what they love and seed that and feed that and nourish that. And so I think that is the one thing that I think shaped me. And I actually painted with him till I was 18 and went to university. That's when I left painting and got into design, but I have a love of painting. And then my father, as if you did not hear the previous podcast, he spent more than 20 years restoring an old building in Argentina that is now a historical monument. And it is just, when we talk about values, I think it's just the legacy is not what you do, it's how you do it. It is, what he left us is the way of doing things right, which isn't about perfectionism. It's about just following like exactly what you believe is right, like the way you want to do it, like the detail, the passion, the commitment. And it's a sense of purpose and a sense of, I think, aliveness that it's very contagious. And, he's 86, 87 actually now.
Spry 86, 87.
It's, he's a he's a young soul, incredibly wise.
Yeah.
And I think that we sort of like absorbed and nourished that. And that has informed every decision I've made in my life. And they've been present always throughout my big decisions and throughout my life. I feel incredibly lucky to have the parents that I've had and the parents I still have. And, and as my dad is committed and passionate, my mom she's a painter, and that does not show her work. So I have
she paints for herself and has her own gallery of her own stored work.
Yes. And they're exhibited in El Sanjón.
Okay.
And we don't understand how she even let my father exhibit them there. And she's incredibly talented, and she's this the most idealistic and positive person I know.
What kind of painting does she do?
Is
it acrylic? Is it watercolor?
No, it's oil paint.
Oil painting.
Yes, okay. Oil painting, and it differs in subject matters, but she's incredibly talented as well.
Okay. And so tell me about, you in your early primitive years outside of just drawing. Were you into any extracurricular activities outside of school? What were your keen interests in school?
Argentina is a fun place to grow up, although we went through a military dictatorship while I was growing up. So there's a lot of complexities through my childhood.
But did you feel that as a child?
I did. Actually, I had both. One is the freedom of enjoying my teenage years and going out, and it's it's like, it's really a great way to grow up. And on the
no one can see right now is the smile that you just had thinking about your teenage years.
It was fun, and it was very free and full of friendships and experiences. It was truly an incredibly free childhood. On the other hand, during the war, like when we were during the military dictatorship, I excelled with my mom because my mom is from British descent. During the Falkland Wars, I had to excel, just the two of us. My dad stayed with my brothers to Chile. And that definitely shaped me, because when I went to get my master's, I studied in Buenos Aires, and I went to get my master's to Los Angeles.
Hold on. You just skipped over a whole bunch of years.
Yeah. Because I'm going to write the heart of everything.
But wait, no, hold on. What were you studying? What were your interests in high school? What subjects?
You know what? It was Always the arts.
Okay.
I was in theater. My mom was in musicals, so I got into musicals very at a young age. I was in theater at school.
Were you one of the leads? Were you wanting to be in the background? How did
I was always in the middle. Like, I wasn't the lead. I
Okay.
actually didn't want to be the
That's
lead.
why I ask.
Yes, I didn't want to be the lead. I sort of many times got invited to it, but it wasn't my, like, I didn't want the lead. I like to be, but I was always very much in the heart of it.
Yep.
But in the arts, that was my thing. Like, we were in a British school, so we did the Cambridge exams, and
Okay.
it's Argentina does that, and arts was my strength, and all the arts. Like, I loved everything that had to do with musicals and singing and theater and arts, and I loved literature, and I loved philosophy. So within
As
all
a
of
teenager?
those, I did actually.
Okay.
I got incredible teacher who introduced me to all the great Latin American writers, and I fell in love with literature and
Huh.
reading. So for me, that was a great opening into, honestly, the arts and poetry and that world, which for me is an incredible world to inhabit.
Okay. So how did you determine what you wanted to study in university? If you were into the arts, I mean, there are a lot of different art
Yeah.
options going into university. So what did you choose?
Well, the funny part of it is that graphic design did not exist
Right.
when I graduated from high school. It had just started. And I actually, when I got in, was the third generation. Like, there was nobody that had graduated from graphic design. The University of Buenos Aires was free, completely free, which is incredible. I mean,
What?
and I know it's incredible. And it not only was free, it was the best one to go to. So it was accessible, but even if you paid, you would prefer to go to the public one. And we had an architect friend, and he kept on seeing me drawing and the type of drawings I did, and the colors and the graphic element of it. And he told me about this new career. And so I went into graphic design. Remember, there was no internet. I'm dating myself. There was no internet. There was nothing. So I actually got into this career very, without an understanding of what it actually meant.
Right.
I knew of illustrators, of some graphic designers, but I didn't have an understanding. And I'm incredibly grateful because that unique, because I started in Buenos Aires when the career started,
Mhm.
my teachers were architects. So that program was not run by graphic designers. They were actually run by architects who had moved into a more graphic aspect of architecture.
Yeah, right. So the way you're learning from them is completely different from a graphic designer.
Completely different.
Yeah.
It's both graphic design, but it's also more systematic.
Yes.
And there's, like, it's more modular. There's more systems to it, which I am incredibly grateful. And then it was a very rich, like, I think, the world has become more specialized. When I was growing up, I was teaching, learning about Borges from Jorge Luis Borges, from the editor of Borges was teaching the class. So that's priceless, like that, to have those experiences. So all my love of film, we had film classes, we had all of these classes that just enriched us as human beings. Not just our it wasn't just studying graphic design. It was learning about the arts and learning about the world. So it was an incredible experience.
And did you get to live at home, or were you living on a campus?
No, this was very close to my house. And in Argentina, nobody goes away because the universities are there. So you live at home.
Okay.
And you have a lot of fun as well.
Just out of curiosity, I'm unfamiliar with it, so you'll have to excuse my naivety to this question. What are some of, like, the most prevalent Argentinian dishes? I assume, like, from like meals and cooking. Like, what? Because when you go away when you leave home in school, you leave home cooking behind, and you're like, most university students eat like trash. So what were some of your favorite dishes from home?
Oh, you know what? Oh my goodness. So when I left home, I went to Los Angeles.
Okay.
That's how I left home. I didn't move into another place.
So what did you miss?
I missed everything. Like, my home, In the one thing Latin America has is
Yes.
we cook a lot,
Yes.
and we have households that are always open to many, which meant they used to call my house the club, and people used to show up as if it were a club. Like 20 people would show up.
Who?
Oh, all my friends, my brother's friends, my parents' friends, and my other brother's friends. Like, but all the time.
She'd have just feasts for
It was
dinner.
a like we had two refrigerators. So what do I miss? Everything. We had like 4 desserts every day, more or less. We had tarts that were like three, or like there was always food. Like it was dishes like I'm trying to remember how to say them. Sort of meat with fig inside. Like it was
Oh,
very high end
good.
produced
Yeah.
meal. There was always vegetables. There was always like incredible cooking. So for me, food is another way of art. But it truly, I lived it.
Well, and I just think about, like, when you think of home and the opportunity of living at home for an extended period of time. Like, some people, if they're going to university, they're leaving it. But if you're staying there, like, you get this opportunity to be a more advanced stage of life where you can appreciate some of that stuff and be involved in it, and work alongside. So if your parents were helping and you're making something, like, you're involved in that, and there's all these aromas, and there's the connectivity, and as you alluded to at the very beginning, the opportunity for, like, these really in-depth conversations,
Yeah.
while you're also being immersed in this incredible sensory
Yeah.
feeling of, one, the people, but two, the food. And
I think so. I mean, the one thing that I always miss, I think that there is a certain aliveness to the culture that comes with food, with, music. My grandfather was Hungarian, came from Hungary, and he used to play the violin.
oh,
And they
really?
used to get together on Sundays to play music, classical music.
And did someone else play another instrument?
My brothers did, but like my grandfather passed away early on. But it's
Sorry.
experiences. No, but it's experiences that you experience once, or you experience during the time that you experience it, and they carry on. And I think that those, like today I go to, see a concert, and if there's somebody playing the violin, it is incredible
Takes you back.
how it takes me back,
Yeah.
and it comes home. And I think those are the things, that's the thing with the arts, that when you're fed with that, when you like, when that inspires your upbringing at an early age, that's part of who you become. It's not just something you do, it's who you are.
Mhm.
And I think as we talk about anything within what I've done, or what my parents have done, I think it's just we lived it
Yes.
wasn't something you wanted. You didn't go to get something. It wasn't what you wanted to study. It was a reflection. Like, it's you do who you are,
Yeah.
not just what you love,
Yeah. Well, I asked that question because I think laying the foundation of kind of who you are and how you've experienced what you've experienced informs a lot of what you're able to provide as a service to people from, like, a really, like, high level of integrity standpoint. It's not forced. It's none of the like, I haven't lived this scenario. It's, I've lived it. I can associate with what you're talking about. Here are some of the ways that we can bridge those gaps between your thoughts and what I've experienced as well.
yeah.
So, and we'll get to all of that as we go.
Yeah.
But
And I think that, like, as you met my father, I was brought up in a very expansive
yeah,
thinking.
yeah,
And so, today we call it forward thinking and future thinking. But that was my household. So
yeah,
my house was my home. There was always, my brothers are the same. Like, everybody's in conversation with each other. My mom as well, like, about what is social situations, what are the movements and the dynamics happening globally,
right,
not just in the place you're born. I was always, we always had conversations about the world, and it wasn't just about North America. It was literally what's happening in different parts of the world. What are the movements? What are the social movements, the political movements, the artistic movements? And that awareness of how things are moving, I actually think that is the core of what excites me too. I like to think that way. And I like to be on the edge of challenging things, because I was brought up with that type of thinking and interconnectedness.
right.
There was nothing was just siloed. It was all interconnected.
Hmm.
Life was interconnected.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I think
So,
that's the difference.
so you were saying that you finished an undergrad in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and then you moved to LA.
Yes.
for your master's. So what was your undergraduate degree in?
In graphic design.
It was in graphic design.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was like the third generation that graduated. Like,
Yeah.
it was a new career.
Right.
Yeah.
And you had developed a portfolio. Did you need the portfolio to get into your master's program?
Yes, I actually worked all along. I started working very, very on in my life before in high school. Like, as soon as I would finish high
Where
school.
were you working?
Oh my goodness. I
Let's
started.
go through all of them.
Why?
Because
I did so much. I taught art in high school, which I never understood how they hired me so young. But I was teaching.
What do you mean? You
I was
taught it to high school students?
When I graduated, I was teaching high school students art classes and
During class?
I finished high school.
Yeah.
and I started teaching
I mean,
without a degree.
No, I follow that. I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
did they have you coming into the classroom to teach it, or was this an after school program?
No, I was part of the
You were like a
class.
TA in
I was
high
a
school?
teacher in, like, just after, like, I had graduated and I was a teacher in high school, which
Yeah.
I actually realized I loved teaching.
Wild.
And then, but I got into a design studio as, obviously, like the very first employee. Like, it was a very small studio in my first years of graphic design. So I was having both the learning and the experience simultaneously, and that gave me a lot, incredible amount of experience, just by doing that.
Okay.
So I was doing both.
And then
when I finished,
yeah,
I decided that, I felt that when I graduated Argentina, because it was a new career, we started to get really, like, I was freelancing while I was studying and getting incredible clients. Like, I had banks as clients.
How?
Well, because it was a new career, and suddenly I don't know. I still wonder how we got that
Were you
experience.
responding to an RFP?
No, it was
a connection.
It
of
was
some sort?
always a word of mouth, and somebody would say something, and a friend of mine, and I would end up with these incredible projects at a really young age that I thought, there's something, I'm missing something. I can't be working for a bank. And I felt there was so much I didn't know. I didn't feel that I was actually.
Yeah, you had imposter syndrome.
But yeah, I don't actually believe in imposter syndrome.
Okay, fair enough.
I actually think that's like a completely derailed concept.
An overutilized term.
Yeah, like imposter syndrome is actually just the fear of what you do not know, which is the most natural experience we should have. We should totally own it and say, what do I do about it? And if I feel this way, why am I feeling this way, and what can I get better? And it's just learning. We call it imposter, but it's actually just learning and just normal fear of something, an uncomfortableness, which we actually should want in our life and in our creative process.
There is a particular kind of craftsmanship that does not come from a catalog. It comes from people who understand that a window or a door is not just a product. It is the threshold between the inside and the outside of a building, and it deserves to be treated that way. Marta and Martin built the doors on exactly that philosophy. For nearly 20 years, they have been supplying architects, builders, and homeowners across the GTA and beyond with premium European window and door systems, sourced and manufactured in Europe, finished and installed here in North America. Marta oversees sales, the showroom, and the manufacturing process, and brings a hands-on precision to every project. Martin drives the technical and import side, ensuring that what arrives on site is exactly what's specified, and supports Marta's largely on the sales. What makes Marta's story particularly worth knowing is that she and Martin built this business from scratch after immigrating to Canada, with Marta having lived here for over 24 years. That experience of starting over and building something real informs everything about how the doors operates. Marta is also the executive director of the Canada-Poland Association of Businesswomen, a growing community of 73 women connecting Polish and Canadian professional circles, which tells you something about who she is beyond the business. If you are working on a project where the building envelope matters, and it always does, Marta and Martin are the people to have in your corner early. Find out more about them in the liner notes or email me and I'll set up an introduction to the two of them. My email address is Jonathan, Jonathan, @issuedforconstruction.ca.
So in any case, I decided that I wanted to apply to university to get my master's.
Yep.
And again, there was no master's in design. So I was the first generation of Art Center, which is a incredible design school, to have a master's degree. So I was one of the first ones to get a master's there.
So what was the size of the program that you entered into in LA? How many students did they have, and how did you feel that the structure of the program worked based on what your knowledge base was? Did it expand upon your knowledge base? Was there anything there you felt where you already knew it, and so they were actually there's like some levels of redundancy? What was that like?
So we were 6 people.
6.
6. I was part of that 6. Today they have a name for that pack, of the ones like the ones that started this program. And no, this program was so new that the reason I felt so lucky, my degree was in intercultural design, which at the time it was the beginning of globalization. So actually, it was a perfect choice for me because I went into sort of cultural anthropology and design. And now today, this is all that knowing has served me so well in my career. But because it was new, I got to shape it. And I shaped it in ways that funny enough, is where my heart lies, which was I took, you know, visual art classes. I took film history classes. And a lot of it is you spend most of your time doing your a thesis and your exhibit. And my exhibit was in the military dictatorship. So I had to revisit. That's why I was going there the first time. I had to revisit everything that I had lived and more.
Wow.
And in doing so, I sort of connected to the biggest archive of political graphics, which now I'm still deeply connected to and doing work on a
What
project.
does that mean?
So my thesis was on identity, and it was actually about literally blurring the lines of identity and openness, and it was called In Between Borders.
Okay.
And so it was talking about identity in a way that at the time was not, because everything was specialized, and I was literally bringing the concepts of both culture and the importance of culture, but also about a more expansive understanding of identity, which now is happening in identities that are much more flexible and
Yes.
moving. But at 25 years ago, it was not. And my exhibit was a deep dive into what I had experienced during the military dictatorship, and presenting this personal experience, like going deep down into this search for myself, for what it meant to me, and doing an exhibit that actually would tell people about this experience, that and what it means to be under a dictatorship, and what are the consequences of it,
Right.
and everything else. So in order to do the research, I called Amnesty International, and again, there was phone calls,
Yep.
and the woman that answered the phone told me I'd been waiting 10 years for this phone call, and sent me a package with everything she had about Argentina from Amnesty International.
Wow.
And then I got from America's Watch all the first 2,000 reports, human rights reports that came out of Argentina, of obviously, the abuse and the killing, like pretty much everything, sent to me. So I actually have all those copies. And then somebody contacted me and gave me this information about an archive that had started not long ago. There was an archive of political graphics, and I went there and met this incredible woman, Carol Wells, who's the curator and the woman who was an activist and started this archive, because she was actually the activist,
Hmm.
and she pulled a poster of the World Cup from Argentina where the logo was actually a jail. And I was so moved, it actually almost started to cry. And it was so impactful to suddenly see the dichotomy, because it was that, it was like, I was part of that World Cup celebrating, and yet our reality. So to see the complexity of when you live in a place and you can see both in
Yes.
and far. And now we're actually working on, at this point, on a book which is the anthology of this Center for Political Graphics. It's a book, and they have the largest 90,000 posters from around the world.
Wow.
And so those are the things, these are the things that have totally shaped me, like human rights. I mean, that's where my human rights where my, you know, why it's so important for me to work on projects that shift society. And it's so deeply embedded. Like it's not, for the sake of sounding like anything. It means so much to me,
Hmm.
you know?
And how long was that? How long was that program?
It was a 2-year program.
Okay. So you finished and you have, did all 6 people graduate?
Oh yeah, yes.
Okay.
And it became now a bigger program.
I don't know.
Many became teachers actually. Many have stayed in
You
the
know,
university and became heads of programs. Many of my friends from that two of them became heads of programs from
it's
Art Center.
so when you started, you were 6. The year after you, were there 6 or were there more? And then did it
No,
continue? It continued
they
to
were
grow.
more, and they continue to
Yeah.
grow. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like a similar scenario to when I was in school. Like we were part of the first year graduating class of Guelph Humber, and there were 3 streams. There was media studies, there was computers, and there was business. And then the next year they added more streams. But we were 220 kids in the entire school.
That's incredible.
And then then a couple years later they had thousands.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, the school art center was a full, like it was the masters just had 6. Like the school had, like, it's a very well known
yeah,
school in Pasadena, and most of the transport designers and the great have come from that school. Great filmmakers. It's just that they didn't have a master's till those years.
right.
And anyway, I'm grateful because they didn't have it, the flexibility
Of
that they
course.
gave us to
Yeah.
do things and
You
access.
could help inform the program too on like for the future
Yeah,
years.
I don't know if we informed it, but did I enjoy it? And did I like, I think it was one of the places where I truly jumped into learn, and I felt so naive. I remember when I arrived, I'm like, oh my goodness, critical thinking, like all these books I had never read. I felt so ignorant. And then I realized this is the land I want to nourish in. And it was just a beautiful opening for me. It just opened to all of these places in the
So
world.
how did you determine like how did you determine where you were going to live when you were going there? Did you fly there with family and did you go search out at the correct spot in a neighborhood? Like how did you, or did you stay on campus? Like what did that look like?
So, well, I had a brother studying that had studied in Berkeley and was studying in UCLA. That's why it
Okay.
became easier to stay in LA. And the university didn't have a campus. But when I started to look at universities, funny enough, it was the architecture that I fell in love with, which is sounds so incredibly non-rational, irrational. I saw Art Center and it had like this metal black bridge on top of this beautiful valley. And I looked at that piece of architecture and I had never seen anything like this before. And I thought, I need to be here. I truly need to be here. And that's one of the reasons I chose that place. It was so intuitive. And it's funny enough, I did meet my husband the first day I was in university. So
Really?
there was a sense of something needed to happen. But I lived, we rented. I just sort of, a lot of it was just intuition and flow. Like we just found a place and rented. And there was so much about unknown. There were so many unknowns. And I'm actually a person that is, I wasn't as comfortable with the unknowns, and I've become not only comfortable, I actually search for them. I truly search for that unknown in my life,
Right.
you know?
So when you were in those 2 years, did you do any internships or was it solely school?
No, it was
Like,
solely
okay.
intense school. Like
Okay.
there was an intensity to Art Center that was insane. But you would go at 3 in the morning, and there was people at university drawing and painting, and it was intense. I didn't even see the beach. Like it was that intense. It was
Okay.
crazy.
What was one of the hardest things that you had to overcome while you were in your master's program?
I think it was that. I think that there was I spoke English, but I had to write a thesis, and just writing a thesis in a language that, although I can write it, and the to be that eloquent and to be able to express the thoughts and the depth of the thought and the depth of the thinking, and the challenge, they kept on challenging me, and I loved it, and it was scary. And so it was, I think that was the biggest challenge, to
Okay.
grow
Right.
into my own.
And so what did you do when you completed school? Did
Well, I was lucky enough. I got a couple of offers. Like I went to New York,
Yeah.
and
On a whim or with intent?
with intent.
Okay.
We have, my future husband and then boyfriend
Boyfriend.
was in film, and we basically chose a couple of cities, and we said where we're going to be able to work. But I had actually been freelancing at Patagonia. At the beginnings of Patagonia,
Okay.
in between, and I decided I wanted a graphic design. I wanted to learn from great graphic designers, so I went to New York looking for the best studios, and I wanted to be in those. And I had a couple of interviews. It was a different time. There were headhunters at that time, and they would call you. So I had a headhunter that actually found a couple of interviews. And when I was at Pentagram, I presented to Michael Beirut, who's an incredible designer, and said, "Look, we're not looking for anybody, but let me make a phone call." And he picked up the phone, called the other studio that's incredible a block away, and sent me right there at that moment. And I got a job at Drental Doyle Partners, which was at the time like the best. Like if you thought a master's does anything, you just need to work at a studio like the one I did, and it was just like learning over learning. It was an incredible learning to work there, and I worked there for 3 years.
And what were the hours like?
Long, because at that time in New York, we would start early, and nobody left till like 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Define early.
No, not early terrible. It was like, 9 o'clock. It wasn't
Okay.
terrible, but you wouldn't leave the studio till it was like, 8 o'clock at night, just out of like, I don't know, there was this unsaid rule that you had to keep on working.
Right.
But on the other hand, you know, I learned about typography and design and color and incredibly talented people. It was definitely a PhD in design. It was the best of the best.
And what were some of the projects? What do they look like? Were they in terms of variety of projects?
It
Not
was
necessarily who the clients were.
Yeah, but and even that, like the like even saying the clients, it's like we were redesigning the National Design Museum, working for the financial center for. It was very varied, from museums to it was always within the arts. We were if it were brands, it was just redesigning Coach or paper companies, or like it was very doing books. There was a lot of variety, and we did the entire Martha Stewart like product line fully at the time. So it was very varied, and it was very artful, and it was very human, and it
Right.
was and there was a love of craft and typography, and that was what I learned from them is that sort of love of design, love of a sensibility of color that I've seen in very few studios in the world, like the sensibility of it all.
Hmm. And were you given creative freedom, or were you given parameters for that creative freedom?
I think that no, I think that there were parameters for the creative freedom, but I think it wasn't. I mean, I think it actually served me well because I had to learn a lot, and I learned through it. I learned through those parameters. So there was both freedom and like there was possibilities and constraints, and it didn't scare me. It
Right.
wasn't all just like, oh, it's whatever. Like, actually, there were constraints. There's certain brands that had constraints. There's certain sort of aesthetics or thoughtful process that had certain constraints, and then there was possibilities to
Right.
keep on pushing it. And I actually think great design has both still today. You know.
And what were some of the more interesting projects that you had the opportunity to work on over those couple of years?
Well, I think the National Design Museum was incredible, because we did the magazines and the publications, and I
Okay.
learned about editorial and format and typography. That was wonderful.
And were you working in software at the time?
It was the beginning. Yes, we were
Yeah.
working in Quark Express.
Quark Express.
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
and the limitations of it, and also the things that we did by hand. There was a lot of things. There was shoots that we did, like if Stephen, who was one of the creative directors and owners, he would actually paint cars by hand and then put them together and shoot them. And there was so much that was handmade or analog, and there's a texture and there's a
Yes.
feeling to that.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. You say Quark Express, and I reminisce on my own past.
And it feels so old.
I remember,
know?
like, I had a class, and I dragged down the line because you could drag the lines down to create your grids
Yeah.
instead of actually entering them. And I remember I had a prof that was like, I can tell you're dragging the lines down, that you're not entering them. And I was like, oh, yeah, how do you know that? Um, so what led you away from that? What steered you away from the opportunity of 3 years working in New York?
You
Great
know what?
practice.
It's funny. Like you just said it in a way I had not thought about it. At every point, I was led away, actually. But I think life always made that leading away the opportunity that I needed. Like truly, like it was never maybe the choice I would have taken, and always the place I should go. It's and I see it that
Well,
way.
you said so. What I haven't mentioned yet at all in this recording is how funny it was that when we met, and you used a word that I've actually now used a little bit more. It's like my one of my go-tos currently, which was serendipitous.
It is.
So just really high level, I just want to provide some framework for how you and I met. So I was invited to an AI workshop in design and how AI is going to change or could change design. Luigi Ferreira and Jacob Kessler alongside from Conifer Ventures alongside was it what was the school? Was it OCAD?
Yes.
It was OCAD, right? Yeah, okay. Alongside OCAD had put together this workshop, and on the way down to the workshop, I'm on the phone with Zoe Coombs, who, if you are unfamiliar with, is also had an episode that came out a couple of weeks back. And Zoe runs a foundation called the Neptus Foundation. Nonetheless, Zoe is redesigning her website, and we're talking about that and all the rest of it. And she mentions this woman, Vanessa, that she's working with on the development of her website. All of this to say, I sit down at the table that I'm at, and I think were we given tables or no?
No,
No.
I arrived a little late.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah,
lost.
yeah. You arrived late, and I'm sorry, but I just want to provide the framework of all this. But so Vanessa arrives late. She sits down next to me. We have this, interesting table where we're chatting through all the different topics that are being asked of us. And at the end of it all, I don't remember exactly how it came to be, but I think you had said something about the Neptus
I
Foundation.
think you mentioned a podcast, and
Yeah.
because I have been working
Yes.
with Zoe
Yes.
on her publications as well,
Yes.
and pretty much everything about Impossible Toronto, and
And I
I
was
knew she had done a podcast.
Yeah. And I was like, well, hold on a second. What's your name again? She's like, Vanessa. I was like, hold on a second. Like an hour ago, I was on the phone with Zoe and we were talking about this. This is crazy. Your words were so serendipitous. And I got to tell you that, like, that, and the reason I'm saying all of this, by the way, one is to provide context of how you sit across from me today, but two, also how things seem to have worked in your life, and that having spoken to you outside of this current discussion, you have seemed to embrace the moments of life that provide change when you don't know you need them.
Yeah.
And that there are some people that can see that as a negative and they hold a grudge against the change versus those that embrace it with a smile and look forward to the challenge of what's ahead.
Yeah.
And so, and I say all of this because you were just describing.
But I think it's actually right. I mean, I learned it. It's not like you
It's
you
a natural trait. Yeah, I don't think so.
it's not a natural
No.
trait, especially when you have to leave things, and I've had to leave things that I've worked incredibly hard to build.
Yes.
But for some reason, and I actually do think that's actually the way I would that's my mother, like, that will find, you know every cloud, every rain is passing, like, no matter if you're in the middle of, like, the worst storm of your life. I have to admit that I always do. When it happens the first time, you wonder why you're having to live this way. When you understand that this actually opens up incredible, like, what the hardship actually shapes you, and opens all of these incredible opportunities that you would not have had otherwise.
Yes.
Then you started to embrace it, and when you start to embrace it, and then you realize that, wow, if I'm actually open to it and just flow with it, wait, this actually becomes even more interesting because it becomes porous and it becomes enriching. And I think that I've decided that this is the way that I want to move in life. I
Right.
really want to move with that lightness and flow.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not easy. It's not like I have it figured out, but I know that I'm open to it. I'm always open to, like, okay, well, if we have to do this, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Let's just lean into it and just go for it full force. And it has served me so well. And serendipity, I truly believe, like I've just stopped and I honor it when it happens now. Like, like I was just in Mexico not long, like last week,
Yeah.
and had to get out of a cab because the traffic was so bad that I was not going to get to my meeting. And in my running for half an hour to get to this meeting, I run into a designer that worked with us in Toronto, that was living in Mexico and is moving the next day to another part of Mexico. And I run into her in the middle of like nowhere. And when
In
you
Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Oh,
And
this is a small population.
but I haven't
city.
seen her in like,
Yeah.
and she worked. And so when those things happen to you, for me, it's not just like, oh, what a coincidence. I'm like, oh my goodness, why? Why is it happening? And I love it. That's when I feel like, okay, there's somebody out there, whatever that is, but
Pulling
we
strings.
think we have control over this. We have no understanding that we don't. And I think it's actually incredibly beautiful, and then many of those situations have happened in my life, and that have made me turn in, one way or the other, or something has happened that is actually pretty magical. And I love that magic in my life. I truly do.
I mean, I'm with you. Building something from the ground up in a new country, in a new market, with nothing but your reputation and your work ethic is not a small thing. That is exactly what Yuri Antipov did when he brought Aquanta Pools to the GTA. Before coming to Canada, Yuri built and ran one of the fastest growing pool companies in the Ukraine. He did not arrive here in Canada looking for shortcuts. He arrived with 15 to 20 plus years of expertise in pool design, construction, and water systems, and a standard for craftsmanship that he has not lowered for anyone. Aquanta is the official distributor of biodesign pools in Ontario, a European pool technology that is environmentally responsible, highly customizable, and built to a standard most pool contractors in this market simply cannot match. Every project Yuri takes on, he approaches the same way. Schedule locked in, budget transparent from day one, and attention to every detail without exception. If you want to learn more about what they offer, head over to the liner notes or email me directly, and I'll set you up with an introductory email to Yuri. My email address is Jonathan, that's Jonathan, @issuedforconstruction.ca. Now, let's get back to Vanessa. So tell me about the magic of walking away from New York.
Well, the magic of that was that my husband was struggling finding work as a filmmaker, because it's not an easy career. And so he went to LA to try to find opportunities there. And then that's when I said, okay, fine, this is the time. And I was able to get a company in LA. I interviewed and was lucky enough that they hired me, and they sort of moved me, and and they did the entire like expense thing, which was crazy. And we moved to LA. We moved back to LA.
Sorry, when you say that they did the expense thing, what do you mean? Like they
paid for my move and all of those things when you're like starting your career.
A company in LA paid for you guys to move to LA and set you up.
And set me up. And those are the opportunities. Awesome. I know. Especially when you're not like, you're out of school in 3 years, and you're struggling, and it's a lot of money. And so I got that position as design director, which was incredible.
3 years out of school, you got a position as design director?
Yes. It was senior designer, but jumped into design director 3 years after. And then after 1 year, after 6 months, my husband got an opportunity in Toronto, and he moved to Toronto. And so after a year in LA, I moved to Toronto. So I was.
Were you married at this point?
By that time I was married. Yeah.
So I mean, this is a story.
This is a story. That's why I said it doesn't come easy. And I did it even more. I did it once again.
So you stayed in LA for 6 months while he moved to Toronto, and was able to establish himself and his roots and the foundation of what his career would look like.
Yeah.
You got to.
I couldn't leave because I felt that they had already paid for my move.
Yeah, you had a commitment to them.
So
I decided. Same way they committed to you.
I decided to move a year later and explain that unfortunately was the situation.
Yeah,
And at the time, you couldn't do freelance or anything like that long distance because we didn't have internet.
of course.
So maybe the beginnings. I
I
think
was gonna say, what
we
year is
didn't.
this? This is mid 2000s.
So this is this is
2000s.
1998.
This is 98.
1998.
Okay.
And so it was just like the beginning of, I don't think we even had internet.
No, internet was
And
not as prevalent.
no,
No, it was. I mean, it was
we
dial-up.
just had like, we just had like, we had like, what do you used to call it when they used to call you in the little
Pagers.
the pager?
Yeah, you had
When the printer wanted to reach you, you had a pager.
Yeah, you had pagers. Like maybe Nokia was just about to come out with a flip phone.
Yeah.
If that. I don't even know if the flip phone was out at that point. Yeah.
I actually remember not wanting a mobile because I didn't want people to. It was the beginning of it, and I didn't want people to reach me at when there was not working hours. Imagine that. Imagine
so
that
expensive
concept.
too. Like sending text messages cost money.
No, but just the idea of like, what people are going to reach me when I'm not at work? Like, I'm not at work. This is absolutely ridiculous.
It's asinine. No. I want my free time now.
I want my life. And anyway, then that's how I moved to Toronto.
So you come join him, and had he established himself at that point?
He did. He got hired by he got repped and paid by a production company here. So that's when we moved back to Toronto.
Okay. So second time in Toronto.
First time in Toronto.
I was going to say first time in Toronto.
Yeah. This is a long story.
It's
you think you want to go all this?
Yeah, let's go.
It's like, I've done a lot of like ping-ponging and bouncing around.
That's okay.
I have to say.
There's actually, so there's one person that I've spoken to, a guy from Mexico that practices in Mexico City now, and his story of travel was the most of anyone that I've ever spoken to, and his name was Ludwig Godfroy, and he's a brutalist architect in Mexico.
Oh wow!
And that guy traveled like everywhere to pursue what he now does. So tell me about what it was like, because it's also like culturally, you're talking about completely different places. From Buenos Aires to LA is different, like vehemently different. And I haven't been to either of them to live, so I'm only speaking from what I know. New York, is different. Actually, New York was first, then LA.
No, it was LA, then New York.
Then
LA.
New York, then LA.
Yes. I ping-ponged.
Yeah, and then Toronto.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Especially taxation, but anyhow.
Actually, that as well.
So what was it like? So you come here and
well, first of all, I was in awe. Actually, I loved the city.
Toronto?
When I moved, I lived in New York, and I came here, and I was like, wow, you get all these. Like I've always loved the warehouse type of building and the sort of loft type of building. Yep. In New York, it was something that was inaccessible, and when I moved, it was actually accessible. Like the to be able to rent a studio, to be able to live in a house, like the difference in pricing and the accessibility of it was very different. And I love the city. In the 98s, we had a lot of warehousey buildings, and it was low, and it was open, and I actually love that. There was a lot of green. Right. So I fell in love with the city. I think the community was incredibly kind. From the beginning, they invited me to be part of the RGD, which was an organization, a graphic design organization here. And so I suddenly got involved incredibly fast and got welcomed into the community in a way that was very humbling, like really, really beautiful. And I did a couple of freelance jobs, and then decided this was my time to start the studio. And I always had it in me. I knew that I was that type of person. It didn't. It is not true. It's not that it didn't scare me. I didn't know better. I had no access to anything, and I just wanted to go for it. So I rented a little warehouse space in Adelaide and Pasadena, which now is like, wow. Right. But at the time, my loft was next to the sewers of the suits and the sewers of something else, and they were all sewers in my studio. And but it was exactly like I wanted. Like I wanted those high ceilings. I wanted that loft, New York style.
Yeah.
But we had it
exposed
in Toronto.
Beams,
exposed
mediocre glass.
Exactly. I loved it. I loved it
Completely
raw.
inefficient HVAC systems.
Oh my God. And I still have those warehouse buildings. I still have them 27 years later. I loved it. And I was so excited to work. And because I was living, the one thing that when you travel so much and live so much is that in different cities is that you start meeting people. So the work starts coming. Since I started the studio, my work was coming from all over. So I was getting work from Miami. And then I got the beautiful opportunity to design Caban, if you remember that. Um,
Caban?
Caban for Club Monaco.
Oh,
So that was a big project for Toronto. And I was just starting the studio when I got that opportunity. So I was able to do all of that identity plus all the packaging. And so it was a very big project for here. And parallel to that, I got Roots Air to redesign Roots Air and everything and work with an incredible people there. So very, very young, I got to design airplanes and the insides and travel to, to, I think it was Texas to choose the seating. And it was just crazy. And started teaching because I had a master's degree and not that many people had. I started teaching at OCAD.
huh.
So in a very, very few years, I established my studio incredibly well and with a lot of opportunities that I don't think I would have had I not moved. And that's where, you become grateful for that. Um,
Well, I mean, seizing opportunities is the other side of opportunity,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And trying things that, like I had never taught at the university level, like trying things like just jumping, honestly, like just jumping and believing that you're going to be okay and just pushing it and keep on trying things that make it uncomfortable. And I think that I actually like it. Like I like that. I like to be sitting on that edge where I'm grounded, but there's an opportunity to sort of jump
Yeah.
forward. And it's an exciting place for me. I would never want to be in a place where I'm completely stable and stale. Like it's just not exciting. I need I need the challenge
The
and
volatility.
the aliveness.
Yeah.
Like the aliveness,
Yeah.
that sort of that sublime aliveness and that stirring of excitement and energy. It's sort of a motivation of my creativity. There's a great writer, I think it's Dillard, that says, you're holding yourself in midair. And I love that idea that you're in midair, and that's an exciting place. It just keeps you alive. And without it, I mean, wouldn't be fun.
There are a lot of people that are constantly anxious about how their practice is going to be able to survive whatever they're going through, right? And they live in that anxiety, in a perpetual state of anxiety all the time, which can be very, very bad mentally for them. And what you're describing is not that. You're describing actually enjoying the process of finding your next client and what it's going to be like to uncover what their
Yeah,
problems are.
yeah,
And that's it's I think it's refreshing because there are a lot of people that hold the anxiety level versus the excitement level
yeah.
of the unknown.
So in a architecture is very different than design. In design, to hold stability, you normally have retainers, which you do in architecture. I have negated, is that the right word? Retainers my entire life, which is a total risk for a design studio. I've kept small by choice to be able to be free,
Hmm.
and to be able to say no to retainers, because I do think that the retainers, you end up feeding a structure and a ship, and you end up doing not what you love and what you want. You end up trying to sustain a structure. And so we are 5 to 6 people. We've always been. So if we do a book or if we do an airline or if we're the exact same people. But that has given me something that I think is priceless, which is, every job is anew.
Hmm.
Every creative process is an opportunity to actually keep on pushing boundaries and finding new ways to think about it. And it's not just innovation for the sake of innovation in any possible way. It's what does that project bring as a possibility? What is the essence of that
Right.
project? And that's a great place. That's a great place to work from. And I do believe that, you're as good as your last project. You're not as good as your project 10 years ago. So that means you have to keep yourself alive and on
Nimble.
nimble, flexible,
Yes.
growing, expanding, But honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. Like, like I think
So
that's what, for me, I've done what I've loved to do every day. And that is for me something that I choose. It's a choice that I make.
right. So tell me about the beginning and the evolution of like, even branding your own company.
Yeah.
Uh Blok Design. How do you come what is the name? How does it relate to what you do? Tell me about that.
So I'm going to go one step
Sure.
behind, and this is because I think it's important. In when I worked in New York, one of the things that I loved is that they had a rule. They called it 3 Fs. It
Okay.
was fun, fame, or fortune, and they would not take a project if it just had one. It had to have at least two.
Two. Yeah.
And it's a great philosophy. Like, so that's why for me that studio was so important, is
Huh.
because they also had a small studio. They had 13, bigger than mine, but they also kept very nimble at the time. And they took the projects that truly served the creativity, or served. It wasn't just about, like, you could never take something just for fortune or even just
Right.
for fame.
Right.
And so when I started Block, I had two very clear ideas. One is that I feel like I followed a philosophy that it was similar. I would do, especially when you're young and you have no understanding of what this anything is about. um, I stuck to a philosophy, and I think it came from my parents, but it also came from the people I met through work. um, to do to work with people that had the same values, or to do the work that meant something.
Right.
And if it didn't add to you, I would just say no. And that was a risk when you're starting, but it was also a choice.
Yes.
And that's for the reason. So the name Block comes from actually a political magazine
Okay.
from the 1917s. Uh,
1917s.
yes, and it's a Polish magazine, and I've always loved the avant-garde movements in design and in art.
Okay.
And again, because I've always believed that design is at its best when it serves society. And the avant-gardes were, for one, you like what they thought or not, they were actually trying to challenge society at the time. And design at the beginning was serving causes of human rights or politics, or it was serving a bigger cause than just commerce. And I liked
Right.
the idea of it. So I called my studio, at the time you also had the typographical block. So I thought, okay, it connects enough to design, but it actually shows what I'm made of. And what I'm made of is, um, you know, I, I'm more interested in design serving society than I am, where I think that business and society and arts can actually do it together, but it's not separate from.
Right.
And there's a value in it. And then my logo, which I did, I think, in half an hour, because I decided I could not. It's still the same.
Yep.
I would not procrastinate on what the perfection of that is. Would have many different types of letters and alphabets, because I just wanted to be something that was felt and not just situated in a language or a culture.
Okay.
And that's how, I have like letters, and that's how Block became Block. But I just let it flow.
That's great. Okay, so now I understand formation of block. It's
Mhm.
also good to know that in 30 minutes you can create something of relative consequence that ends up lasting for a little while.
You know what? Sometimes it's letting go. I don't
Yeah.
know if consequence is the right word, but letting go. And but I think what was interesting about the studio is, because I actually think that I'm when I started Block, I wrote this text about Block being a space of collaboration. Like, at the time nobody was talking very much like that, but and where you had, you know, different people from the arts
Yeah.
coming together and having this dialogue, and where there could be contradictions and where there could be paradoxes and debates. I actually wrote this text that was very much sort of the type of like connectivity that you maybe would have had in Paris, or in, like, at that time where, like, I don't know, the artists and the poets and the writers all got together. And funny enough, I think that was the intention. And obviously you create a design studio that is serving client both. I wouldn't call it serving clients, because that's never actually how I talk about it. It's more like truly collaborating on projects.
Yeah.
And I think now, almost 27 years later or more, I'm coming back to exactly the place where I began, which is truly incredible, to look at, to finally try to come back to that place
Yeah.
and exactly how it felt when I started it.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your point about not wanting to make it seem like it's just like this business transaction, right? Because it's not.
Oh,
You're
never. For me,
you're
it is not.
you're fulfilling a requirement that people need that they can't fill themselves. And so they look to a professional to be able to come and help
Yeah.
them with this. And when you're doing it at a good level, the work doesn't seem like you're working for a client. It seems like you're working for someone, almost like your outsourced team,
Is that,
right?
you know what? It feels so different than that. I think in design, in design, when we're doing identity, we do a lot of book design exhibits but identity, you're actually looking for essence,
Yeah.
and you're looking for exactly what the word means, identity, who you are. And it doesn't really matter if you think about it as a company or as a person. You have to find the soul of it. And you're using both your rationale,
Mhm.
and you're using so much of your intuition. And I think that I don't know if there's that many places where both of them actually do have to exist. So for me, it's never about the service. It's this incredible journey that you go into, be a company or a small business or a big corporation, and you're in this quest together. And you need them side by side, trying to discern what makes you unique, what differentiates you. And it doesn't become this sort of strategic platform for the sake of just a PowerPoint presentation. It becomes of a truly deep understanding of what are the qualities that make that organization unique, and what are the values that they have that nobody else can, and what are those irreplaceable and undecipherable, or what are those traits that are truly theirs. And it is not a inventing of it. It's not this narrative and marketing or storytelling. It's actually a revealing. And for me, that is such a graceful and gracious project and job. So the design comes from that. You do that work well. You do that sort of quest well into why you should be represented this way, and what is truly representing you and speaking and reflecting you.
Mhm.
And you do it with a lot of like love. And I think it shows at the end, because it's alive. It's, great identities in a state of becoming. It's not just this, and it doesn't serve this. It actually is like a persona, like very dimensional.
Right.
You have many ways of connecting to people, and it has to have depth, and it has to have movement, and it has to have dimension. And when you build it that way and you construct it that way, with honesty, with as sort of like, it's difficult to say honesty because it doesn't sound authentic if you say it, but
It's
using,
such a weird thing too.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But when you do it in a way that is honoring who that company is or who those people are, and you keep on pushing boundaries and seeing what other playgrounds can we play in, right? How can we keep on seeing what opportunities there are? It's so much fun, and we actually love it. We have a lot of fun doing it
I
still today.
also what I find interesting about what you describe right now is like this is a lot of how you want to pursue the work and hone in on delivering something for someone meaningful,
Yeah.
right? But when you started this, it was just you, right?
Yes.
There was one block,
Yeah.
and you had to there were building blocks. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry, this is so cheesy. But I'm a dad, whatever. So then you have to have these building blocks of other people. So how far into your business did you have to go and look for additional talent to serve the clientele that you had because what you had in front of you was too much? Were you a year in, were 2 years in, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years? And in addition to that question, while you think about it, what did that person do? Was it a kind of an all-encompassing role of many things, or was it something specific?
No, like when I started, my first Francis Chen, who's now an incredible design director, and who was wonderful to start the studio with. She was a student at OCAT when I was teaching, and she graduated, and I hired her. So I've always hired very much people that were just graduate students. Like
Yeah.
that has been I've mentored a lot in my life, and I actually like it. I like the mentorship. I enjoyed both the growth that I see, and the like at first, you're just teaching them and then they take off. And so it's always been more about having designers. We now have a product designer in the studio, which is very different, because we've also been exploring products and other things. But normally it's having designers that are young in age and starting their careers, and that they worked for a very long time and stay for a very long time. When Francis worked for me for at least 3 or 4 years before I moved to Mexico. I did move to Mexico City, and that's why I had to close the studio here. So
After 4 years, you close this.
after 5 years, yes,
5 years.
I closed in a really, really great moment of my career. Actually, maybe that was the hardest change. There wasn't a lot of work in film, and then my husband was working in Mexico a lot, back and forth, and then we had to make a decision of where did we want to live. We had already bought a house here, so we basically
This is early 2000s.
this is the 2001. I was like, we had to, so I basically took off, had to close the studio, actually close it here, because again, there was no internet and nobody was following you to another country.
Of course.
And I had to literally, I was running an incredible studio, super.
How many people were there?
We were 4 people, and but doing honestly incredible projects in the city, like really, really projects that meant a lot, like Roots Air, Caban, like they were all like incredible opportunities. And start again in a country I did not know and no connections.
But the language.
I have the language, I have Spanish, but it was a starting over. It was incredibly humbling moment to start again. And but you know what, that is the beauty. Like at the moment it felt so tough and so harsh.
Were you pissed? Excuse my language. Like,
you know what, I didn't, and I think I'm not, I don't go into anger that much. I think I go into grief more than anger.
Fair enough.
There's a choice right there, and I think I went to grief. Yes, I was grieving for sure. Like I had some of the best experiences of my life, and I don't know, just launching Roots Air was just like, Michael, and they just like jumped me on a plane and we flew to Winnipeg and came back with like just to celebrate the launch. And it was just like these, like we just had these incredible, beautiful learnings, experiences. And I was just, I had to sort of close it all down.
Right.
And then start over. So I think you definitely was grieving and definitely, wondering why I had to do this again. But the other side, because you do look back, is that I look back and oh my goodness, what Mexico gave me. Gave me so much, from my 2 kids to like working with Alberto Calach, incredible architects, and just experiences, and the city and the culture that I could have never had otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I simply wouldn't have. And then that humbling moment of just having to let go when you're really doing well. Like this is not like, oh well, I want to try something else because this is not going at the top of your game. When you have to let it all go and start again, I think you learn that you can, and that's an incredible gift, that you have the resilience, and that you're gonna be okay, and you're gonna be able to do it again, and you're gonna be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an incredible gift to, looking back. At the time wasn't quite, but looking back.
And so how long were you in Mexico for?
9 years.
Wow.
So, and I had an incredible amount. Like we worked on projects that were just absolutely wonderful.
And how did you source them?
You know what, again, I think that, so that's, I think that maybe at least my own, and the way I frame it, I reframe things in my life to be able to survive them. I've discovered that. I'm a good reframer. So in reframing that this was going to be good for me, what that does, I think it just opens you for that to be good for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So chance and serendipity. Somebody I met, I can't even remember how, was friends with somebody, and they said, oh, you know what? Maybe you should talk to this person. And I went to talk to that person, and then projects started to show up, and I worked on, honestly, just beautiful projects, like, with Alberto Calach, we did many projects together, including a book on the recovering Lago Texcoco, one of the biggest environmental projects of Mexico. We worked on the Biblioteca Vasconcelos, which is an incredible library, one of the most beautiful library in Mexico City, that they're falling from the ceiling. We did worked on books on racism for the states during my time in Mexico. It was just like an incredibly enriching moment,
Hmm.
and I would not have, and it brought so many things. Like, it's incredible. Like, culture, you come with your own culture, but when you're open to other cultures, Mexico has chaos, it has paradox, it has ambiguity, it has texture. Real Mexico is contemporary. It has an incredible sense of, your modernist architecture is incredible. It's not the cliches that we know about. Like, you have your Matias Good. It's like sculptures that are out of this world, that have influenced. Barragan has influenced, like, John Pawson. He has influenced incredible amount of, people. And so for me, that was a wonderful experience, to have that richness in the culture,
Hmm.
and to start embracing those concepts as part of who I was.
Right.
Of honestly saying ambiguity is an interesting concept to hold, as for the creative space and for exploration. And so it brought a lot of layers to, not only to what I do, is the way I see the world,
Yeah.
if it makes sense.
Yep. And so the variety of projects seems like becomes highly extensive,
It is. It
and you
is.
get to do it. To me, what's I find really interesting about this is you also get to do it in a native language,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Which
And
is less foreign, and in some ways, kind of brings you back home.
it did, although by that time I started to become much better expressing myself in my work in English than in Spanish.
Fair
So it
enough.
becomes complicated. But you know what? By that time I started, like, when I moved to Mexico and then internet came along,
Yeah.
I started to work more internationally. And having had all of these experience, it just made me flow within markets much better. And that's something that that's one of the gifts it brought my
So
way.
give me some examples then of living in Mexico and acquiring international
Well,
accounts.
I got this book on. There was this documentary on African American, on Black golfers, and how challenging, how difficult it was for them to play golf, and the limitations they had. They didn't have possibilities to play till the 70s. They didn't have opportunity to play in golf courses, and what they had to do to become these golfers. And it was just at the beginning of sort of like finding equity and equality, and just like literally seeing an opportunity for
Hmm.
golf having more expansiveness and not being this sort of like very closed up game. And so part of this documentary, they called us to design the book, the photography book, and the content for all this book. And we were in Mexico when we worked on that, and we were consistently getting work out of different places, that people were calling us in Mexico to do to do projects for New York. That was for New York
Right.
and LA. And so suddenly we became, it's funny, we were in Toronto, and we couldn't bring the work back to Toronto when I moved. And then 5 years later, or 4 years later, the world was open and we could work anywhere we wanted. And working in Mexico at the time gave us an edge, and that was incredible. So we worked with a lot of museums. It opened the opportunity to work with the Tamayo Museum and the Marco Museum, and we worked on books. We published many books, which we hadn't quite done before. So it was an incredible journey in every way, and learning.
Hmm. And did you build up a staff while you were there?
Yep, we built up a staff there. One of them did end up working with me when I moved back to Toronto, because I did do that.
Ah.
um, and yeah, you had to. So, and we were lucky, because I was working with Alberto Calach, I ended up with a studio designed by him in all concrete, and it was just maybe one of the most beautiful spaces. I still dream about that studio, and it's when you love design, being in that type of the environment and the space,
Yes.
uh, is so important. Space is important.
Yes. Oh, it makes you feel something.
It makes you feel deeply,
Yes.
and I think that there's joy in what we do, and you feel it anywhere. You feel it when you enter a space, and when there's the right light and the right materiality. I mean, there's a sensuality to what we do, be it architecture, be it contemporary art, or be it design. And you feel, when you have that feeling for it, I don't know, but it made me happy every single day of my life to open that studio and be there. It was just stunning.
So what made you leave Mexico and come back? And you also, by the way, mentioned that you had your two
I
children.
had my 2 kids there.
Yeah.
I think that, again, my husband was considering coming back because of work and opportunities, but I also think that at the time we were starting to see how the quality of life would be for our kids in Mexico City,
Right.
and it was becoming dangerous. And we were living at that time where we had all the drug cartels. It was a serious thing, and they were sort of kidnapping kids, and we couldn't. We lived in La Condesa, in front of Parque Mexico, which is a beautiful park in Mexico City, and we were holding our kids' hands because we couldn't let them run on their own. And I think that knowing was harsh. It was okay when it was just us,
Yeah.
but when we had the kids, our world was starting to get smaller for the kids, not larger. We didn't have as much spaces and as much freedom for them. And we still had our house in Toronto. And thank God, kept our house. And so
You've been renting it.
we had been renting it because we knew that we had lived in enough cities to know that
There's a
this could
chance.
only
There's a
no we
chance we
can
might
we
go back.
come back. In all honesty, that the price could only go up. Like we knew that one was very clear.
Right.
And so we kept the house, and so the move was not, we were already Canadian citizens, and so the move was not a difficult. It was an easy move in
Yeah.
one way and a starting again in another. So there you go. I'd start again, and I started the studio again.
And did you reach out to any of the past clients to say like I'm back?
You know what? There was one client, and I love him dearly, Klaus from Camper, who had called me while I was in Mexico. He wanted to redesign, and I told him I was moving, and I said I'll wait for you. And so when I arrived, it's one of the first identities I did. So because our clients are truly, like, when you have a studio this small, it sounds silly, but it's actually true. They're not clients anymore. There's our human relationship. I mean, they end up being people that I love to hang out with, or that they're meaningful in my life. And even if I see them 10 years later, I get so happy to see them. Like, and they come back. Like, we're a word of mouth type of studio. A client can come back to me after 5, 6, 7 years with another project and have a completely different project.
Right.
So it is about relationships for us, and it's like how it should be. It's human. It's
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah.
It's not just business, and I wouldn't want it just to be business.
Worth noting to anyone listening currently is that you can find links in the liner notes of the show. There'll be a direct link to Blok Design, but there's also a link to Instagram, and there'll be some features of projects that Vanessa wants to share, so you can just get to an understanding of what the design can look like when you're working with her. Just a point of reference. So you come back to Toronto, you get to work on re-engage in a client project, and again start to build your studio back up. You come
Yeah.
back, you're just one.
Yeah.
How many projects do you take on before you have the need to be able to go back to 4 or 5 people, 6 people?
I think it was maybe, I'm trying to remember.
Is it
Just
a
takes
year or two before you
No,
get to that
yeah,
point?
definitely. Like, it took us couple of years to go back, but when you're small, you're that small, you jump into having 3 to 4 people pretty fast
I
because you need
know.
it. So I think the first second year we were already like 3, 4 people. You couldn't do it without it.
Right.
But the good news is that, like, I think the good thing of our philosophy is we work on a project and we finish a project and we're done. So we don't have that, like, we can manage multiple projects and close them and they move on. And that is a very different dynamics than building yourself up for the big, architectural projects. Like, it's nimbler, it's much more fluid, it's more
Right.
elastic. And maybe that is a word that I actually love, elasticity, both of mind and structure. If you can hold elasticity of mind, always open and moving,
Yep.
and elasticity of structure, I think you're in a really interesting place to keep on pushing boundaries and crossing boundaries. If it's not pushing, because I think that the pushing boundaries doesn't quite make sense anymore, but maybe crossing boundaries, you know? And I think that's what I find interesting is always to be elastic.
Hmm. And so, what were some of the significant projects you felt you were able to acquire when you came back to Toronto that empowered you enough to be able to go out, grab, acquire new talent, build up your talent, and also, and I say empower you to go and hire them, but also then empower your staff to be able to be directly engaged with what those projects look like.
I always feel like I honestly do get lucky. Like the you, I the relationships you nourish are the
Yep.
relationships that exist and come back. And as soon as I came back, I was still working on a project for Mexico City,
Yep.
so I already had something that I was finishing. One of our clients from Caban, who's Alison Phillips, who's an incredible, talented woman. She's now working for Powered by the People, and she was working at BlackBerry, head of product design. And as soon as I came back, she said, Vane, help us out with the packaging. And so suddenly we had like BlackBerry, if you remember that time,
I
um,
remember that time.
working on that project as soon as I arrived. And so we had Klaus Nienkamper, and that it was a relationship again of 20 years. And we had worked both for Klaus, the store, but also for the father. And so all of these relationships sort of came back, and there were new ones.
I have to, as you say this
Yeah.
about new ones, just as a frame of reference for anyone listening that doesn't know who BlackBerry was, or I should say is, because are they still around? I don't even know if they're still around. I don't know, but that's something about me. BlackBerry was cutting edge in phone design early on. They had phones, but they had integration with your email servers, and it became very easy to text message with people at the advent of text because they had keyboards involved. This was the first time. And what changed globally was when the iPhone came out, and instead of having a physical keyboard, the keyboard was now part of the screen. And the tactile difference between two divided many people. BlackBerry was huge. And so the associated branding with BlackBerry would have been a massive,
Yeah.
massive deal.
Yeah.
Like they were a multi-billion dollar company at the time.
Yeah.
So
But again, I mean, what brings that is human relationships.
yes,
Like
of
Alison and
course.
I worked in Caban a long time ago.
Yeah.
We still today, are good friends, but also share this sort of love of design and work ethics. And so I think that's what, it all comes back through humanity. And for me, that we're word of mouth. We've never done anything to pursue work. I've always wondered how I could do it better because but it comes to us that way.
Right.
And the work, I think the work, you do the work that you want to come your way. And I think like it's not just about waiting for the right project, but designing the right studio. So I've spent my life designing the right studio for me,
Yeah.
and with a value proposition, with the things we care about, with a commitment to the things we value as a society. And there's this very simple concept, but I actually love it, which is called the value legacy. And I think my dad passed it on to me, like in doing things well.
Hmm.
And I want to pass it on to my kids, which is it's not, what we did in the studio, but if there's something that bothered us about the world, that we did something about it. And so the work we do is both very human and many times, a little bit of activism and a little bit of a resistance and revolution. And I actually do believe in resistance through the arts, in the power of the arts
Right.
to shift things. And so we bring that, in one way or the other. I like that depth that the studio has. It's not just about me. It's about the space we nourish with all the designers in the studio. That's the space we share, you
And
know?
you've also had the privilege of taking all of that and working with some of like some well-known practices here in Toronto.
Yeah, incredible practices.
S
Super cool.
yeah. So you
Who
did
we adore.
right? You did the you did all their
Yeah, we
branding?
do. We did all the identity. We did
Yeah,
all the branding for them
yeah,
and all the identities.
yeah.
We also did the book for them, which was an incredible experience. And actually, our studio is in the same building because of them. They
Oh,
they was the
really?
ones. Yeah, they were the ones who suggested. We look for a space there, and it's an incredible space. So we have them as neighbors as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, there's also Zoe in the Impossible Toronto,
Yes.
and what
What an
that is, and the Neptus Foundation, all of these things.
incredible project.
Yeah,
We couldn't be more honored to work on that project in every way. I mean, it keeps on pushing boundaries, but it also it's making people rethink about the city in different ways, and it's an exciting project.
I would agree with you. I mean, that sounds it's been an incredible project. So I'm curious, given all of that, everything we've discussed, what other pursuits do you have for yourself that might be of interest for people to know about?
One of the things that we've been we'd say work, but I'm not sure if it's work or play, for a long time is a project called Rhythm Dialogues. It
Okay.
actually just became a nonprofit organization, which is incredibly, it's almost crazy. And before COVID, when it wasn't that cool, like maybe 15 or 12 years ago, we bought Klaus from Neen Camper,
Okay.
called me and said, Vani, I found your Airstream, and
Okay.
nobody was looking for those at that time. And for $3,500, we bought an old destroyed Airstream.
And think about now, anyone listening, how much those Airstreams go for.
Destroyed, okay, and bought it on the spot, and we were laughing our way back just because I was like, what am I doing? And we parked it for like I don't know how many years in a parking lot exactly where we bought it. We kept it there. But always knowing that this was something bigger, and my own quest has always been about finding a space for experimentation for the
Okay.
arts, and working. I talked a little bit about it at the beginning. Is can Block be, or can we create a space for that intersection to live in that intersection of the arts between philosophy, art, music, dance, film, photography, architecture, design, and what would that space look like? So we worked with Mason. We actually exchanged our craft. They did the interior design. We did their identity. That actually happens.
Well, Mason Studio?
Yes,
I love it.
and
What's up, Mason Studio? Hello.
we love me. Oh my God, we love Stan. I love Ashley, and we've collaborated with them for many, many years. But this was one of those projects that comes with a lot of heart, and so we all work together. And at the end, we're launching now. Actually, it is in art, not just an art residency, but it will be offering a creative experimental space for artists, 150 artists, all fields applied. We chose five. We have some that are had won the General Award of Canada, and some that are younger and more emerging artists within dance, playwriters, poets, and these five artists are going to be. They choose what place in Canada they want the Airstream, and we take the Airstream there, and they work out of there for 10 days to 2 weeks on some inquiry that they have, and that has to be pushing their boundaries of their own practice.
And are they living in the Airstream?
They are.
Collectively.
No, individually.
Okay.
But there is a point of intersection. There's a convergence where one artist passes on the Airstream to the other, gives them as a gift a prompt or constraint, which will affect the work of the other. And also, they have a sort of like spontaneous exchange of the arts. And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking just to be an art residency. We're actually looking for that space that is going to push each other into some other knowing or some other search of their own craft, and those moments of dialogue of intersection. And I think that this is an invitation for more of these spaces to exist for the artists. This is a paid residency, so we also raise the funds to be able to pay the artists for this, and see what comes out of it. So it's an invitation for ambiguity, for chaos, for all of these things that were so important to me when I discovered in Mexico that creativity actually comes from not knowing where you're going, not by knowing, but to create, to see, to feed that space, sort of like that oblique thinking, that sort of side view, to see it from afar and see it anew. And how do we, in the creative space, create more of this? How can we enrich a society by, because I truly believe that the artists are the poets and the visionaries of a world.
Yes.
How do we nourish this and give more space for this type of experimentation? And that's Rhythm Dialogues, and launching end of June, in an insanely crazy journey of wonderful people that have joined us to put this into the world.
And there's a website for this.
There is a website.
So
yes.
so for you listening now, you can find the website for Rhythm Dialogues in the liner notes.
Perfect.
Okay. That'll be accessible to you. So if you want to learn more about that, you can. What I also find interesting about this is it gives the opportunity for these creatives to be able to understand place, where they are, being connected to wherever this airstream ends up landing.
So there is, I mean, the name of this particular residency is called Emotional Cartography.
Okay.
Because normally we see cartography as something that is drawn, or that it has to do with a different analysis. We don't see it, we don't understand our land with our emotions. So it is one of the key aspects of this particular residency is to give back to place and to engage in whatever community, in whatever place you're at, to give back, to be given that opportunity and to give back that opportunity. And I really believe that at the core of this, there's the word hope. I think that there's a lot of kids out there that where the arts are not a choice, where they have parents that don't believe this is a viable or economically interesting future for you to pursue.
Yeah.
And the arts are not something you choose. The arts choose you. We do not inhabit this space. We actually, I think we have no other choice but to inhabit this creative space. And maybe there's somebody there that experiences or is in connection, or finds themselves at that intersection where this incredible artist and this metal piece arrive, and that life or that understanding shifts. And for me, that's such an incredible gift to humanity, if we can find those opportunities and just enrich that opportunity for whatever kid is out there that actually believes this is their path.
I love it.
I love it too.
I have loved having you here. I've getting to know you has been my privilege. I appreciate you taking time to do this. I know that you, like everyone else, you're busy, you have clients, there's a lot that you have happening in your life. And for you to be able to take the time to come over here and to talk about all of it and to share your story with me and those that are listening, I have to thank you for it. It's been so much fun. I want to ask you, as we close out, what are some of the things that you do for yourself outside of work? I know that you like your work, so work doesn't always feel like work as much as it is. What do you like to do for yourself that allows you to forget about the things that you have worth work, or perhaps maybe not forget about them, but to perhaps just enjoy other elements of life? What are some of your hobbies, some of your interests?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me, for the space to just share
Of course.
openly and with fun. I think I'm an explorer in my wildest heart. And that means that I love pretty much, like, I love traveling, but I like to travel to unique places off the grid. I take my family, jump on the Trans-Siberian train from China to Mongolia, cross the Gobi Desert, go into Russia, or like, I like things that are a little bit out there and that push me, and I love moments of surprise. I mean, I love reading, I love poetry, I love, film. So I think that what I do beyond cooking and sharing with my family, learning how to get better at it all, it's just the experiencing life. Like, I like to experience things and life and people. So for me, it's less about, it's always about just sort of like nourishing this inner world in every way, if it's with theater, or if it's honestly just going off the beaten path and getting lost and wandering. I think that's my favorite thing, is when I don't quite know where I'm going and I'm still going, and that's what I love to do.
Fair. Vanessa, thank you.
Thank you.